So today our presenters are Identity Automation's very own Director of Product Marketing, Carter Dunbar, and Director of Product, Dave Samia. In today's webinar, Taking Identity Management Beyond Security, Introducing RapidIdentity Cloud and Insights. We will discuss how the new Insights module provides administrators visibility to make informed decisions within areas such as login activity, enrollments, applications, launches, and user inactivity from school type through grade level. So now it's time for the webinar. I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic and controls over to Carter and Dave.
Thanks, Rachel. And thank you everybody for joining today. We're really excited to talk to you about how identity management has evolved in the education space to move beyond security, and really how we at Identity Automation are trying to address that. So joining me today is my co-presenter, Dave Samia. Dave, if you'd like to introduce yourself, sir.
Thank you, Carter. Yeah, so Dave Samia, I head up product management for Identity Automation, and I'm very excited actually to talk about some new capabilities that are coming out of the development queue that I think our existing customers and certainly our prospects are going to take really good advantage of. So I'm excited to get into it, Carter.
Likewise, Dave. And I am Carter Dunbar. I'm the Director of Product Marketing. I am Dave's counterpart, just much less skilled, much less technical. Whereas he makes cool stuff, I just kind of talk about it. So here today, let's jump into identity and access management in the education space. So identity and access management has been something that is a staple of needs for education. So K-20, whether you're in the K-12 side, whether you're in the higher education side, being able to handle identity and access management has always been a core component of your cybersecurity practice. What we've seen recently, a lot of this is due to the acceleration of COVID, is the proliferation of technology in the instructional process has led more people to a digital identity as opposed to their physical activity being the sole thing they need to be able to access education. So what has identity and access management done to evolve to meet these new needs with all of this additional technology? Well, what we've seen is that identity management has always been focused on the central puzzle piece of keeping people and data safe. It is cybersecurity first and foremost. It is making sure that the right people have the right access to the right things for the right amount of time. That does not change, that does not go away. That is the core of what identity and access management is. But on the periphery of that, what it also has the ability to do is automate and personalize workflows. And the word personalize is important because that's part of the key of unlocking the power of identity in the instructional process. And then the other is, with all of this technology that's being used, there is a ton of different data that is out there that can be leveraged for gaining operational insights. So looking at this, why does identity matter? What is this potential of identity that we're talking about? Well, we believe that the individual is at the core of the learning process. So as a former teacher, one of the things that we always try to do in the classroom is understand the individual student and how to meet them where they are. What do they know? How do they learn? Where do they need to go? What are the checks for understanding? All of that. But if we're using individuals as the core of the learning process when we're doing in-person instruction, why is our technology not taking the same approach? So understanding the individual identity is the key to effectively serving your constituents, your user populations. And that goes beyond just students, but for your employees as well. Understanding who they are, what they need, and providing them the user experience and access that they require is a fundamental part of what IAM can do to unlock all of the potential in your digital ecosystem. And then finally, what COVID has really shown us is one size fits all doesn't fit most. So as we can see from our little picture here, she is none too pleased to have been given the one size fits all suit because it doesn't fit her. It may fit the majority or the largest number of people, but it doesn't fit everybody. And there's no reason now with the technology that we have at our fingertips to not be able to provide everybody exactly what they need to be the most successful. So how does identity facilitate learning outcomes? Well, we believe that digital identity specifically is at the core of your digital ecosystem. And there's three components that are built around your identity. One is having a secure and scalable platform that can manage all of your identities and their access and experiences, as well as interconnectivity of applications in your digital ecosystem, and the ability to manage not only your accounts, but complex identities. Digital identities are more than just, this is your user account. There is a composite of, maybe you have multiple accounts, affiliations, roles, access right, group membership, all of these different things. No two identities should be treated exactly the same. So we believe that digital identities are representations of real people and that people are unique. So our tech strategies in the educational process should center on identity management to maximize those student outcomes. So what do your users need? From a digital identity perspective, there are three core foundations that it needs to be built upon. They need accounts created for them immediately. I'm a new teacher and I get hired, I need to be able to access my learning resources and my business resources. If I'm a new student who enrolls in the district, I need to be able to access all of the resources that my courses require so that I have the appropriate ability to be successful. Which is the second one, access to all the resources they need. And then finally, what I need is a simple way in place to access all of those resources and applications. So that's where identity lifecycle management comes in, followed by application rostering, followed by secure single sign-on. And secure is an important word there. In the Verizon data breach report that was released at the height of COVID, they reported that 99.9% of data breaches could have been avoided by just implementing multi-factor authentication at the login process. As we are moving to have hundreds of usernames, accounts, things like that, the ability to consolidate that into a single login process is really great from a user experience perspective, but we've got to secure it, we've got to lock it down. And that's something you can do with Rapid Identity Cloud. So what are the core capabilities of Rapid Identity Cloud? These are built on your traditional identity and access management and governance requirements. So identity lifecycle management. When somebody comes into your organization, what is the access and accounts that they need? What are the rights? What are the privileges? As they live throughout your organization, those needs change. You need to automatically be able to do that. And then finally, when they leave your organization, you need to have the ability to revoke that access immediately. Secure single sign-on and MFA, which we just touched on, password management, access controls, application rostering, delegated administration, role management, identity governance. All of these are the core capabilities of Rapid Identity Cloud and how we address your IAM needs. But again, what we have found is this is great from a cybersecurity standpoint, but the amount of contact that your users have with their digital resources provides a lot of really interesting data that makes it something that you can individualize and personalize if you focus on their identity. So real quickly for Rapid Identity Cloud, how is it built? Why does that matter? Well, scalability. It's able to elastically grow or contract based on your size. As you grow, your platform grows with you, and that is important so that it can handle the amount of users, the amount of traffic you have coming in. We have a team that is fully dedicated to continuous monitoring of your tenants, of your platforms to make sure they are sized appropriately, they are up and running, they're updated, patched, secure. All of that is on us. That leads us to be able to put in writing a 99.9% uptime guarantee in our SLA. So what we're saying is by using Rapid Identity Cloud, your digital learning environment and your identity management and security system will be up 99.9% of the time, and we put that in writing. So you can take that back to your stakeholders and point to us to fulfill that. And we will, because it's our business to do that. From an architecture perspective, Rapid Identity Cloud was built in AWS, and it follows an architectural design of tenant segregation. What this means is that your data will never cross streams with any other customer data that is out there. Nobody else will be able to access it. You won't be able to access theirs. And that allows us to fall under FERPA, COPA compliance, as well as SOC 2 for our software delivery process and development process. So the last thing as far as Rapid Identity Cloud from a feature perspective is the features. So one of the benefits of identity as a service and going with cloud identity and access management is as we develop new features, we can just roll them out of the factory to you. We can unlock them for you. What that looks like. The first two that we're going to touch on are the ones that we're going to be releasing here this summer. So the first is identity-driven analytical insights. It's a lot of words. A lot of platforms say they give you analytics, which means they give you data and make you parse through the data and make you have to have a PhD in analytics to understand what's going on. Our goal is not to give you analytics, it's to give you insights. So the way that we do that is we provide flexible analytics dashboards so that you can view activity from your organization level, campus, school, class, student level, all the way down to the individual. We give you the ability to see not only their activity, but who's logging in, when are they logging in, which applications are being used the most and the least. So what is it that they're actually accessing? And then also, and equally importantly, who is not logging in? That allows you to know who you should be intervening with. Is it a technical issue? Are they attempting to log in and are failing, or are they just not even trying? It also lets you see what patterns are out there. Is this relegated to a single class, a teacher, a campus? What's the nature of it? So the insights is one thing that Dave is going to give a demo for here shortly, followed by identity-driven user experiences. So again, if identity is at the core of your technology strategy and your digital ecosystem, then a fifth grader should not have the same experience as a 55-year-old with a PhD. So this is what it will look like. We have an administrator view on the left, we have a student view on the right. What is their experience? Well, when they come to the portal, they're going to see the same thing because it's the same URL, it's the same portal, it's the same product. And the product doesn't know who they are yet. But whenever they log in, they are identifying themselves, they are authenticating that they are who they claim to be. And from that, the system can understand their persona and provide an experience that is appropriate to that individual identity. So for an administrator, they would log in and they would see the traditional Rapid Identity IT administrator view. There are a lot of features, functionalities, bells, whistles, places for them to check. There's a lot here. And for an IT admin, it's fantastic. For a student, you don't need all of that. So for a student, you need a more streamlined experience, a more streamlined, clean view. So when a student would log in, they might see something like this. It's important to know they're not logging into a separate portal. There's not a student portal, there's not an admin portal or a parent portal. You have Rapid Identity. It's the same portal, but it's just giving you an identity-driven user experience. So the first experience that we are releasing this summer is the student experience. And so Dave will walk through how you can base this on your personas to where it's not necessarily limited to students, but we will be developing and growing additional experiences to incorporate the different functionalities and experiences that the different personas need. So at this point, you're not here to listen to me talk, you're here to actually see what it looks like. Dave, I'm going to pass it over to you and let you walk us through what the product does.
Awesome. Thanks, Carter. Let's see if we can't turn that frown on that little girl, turn that frown off and give her an experience that's going to be more suiting to her role in the organization. I think I may have shared the wrong one. Let me do sharing, show screen. Right there. All right. So yeah, I've been doing this for a long time, Carter, but I'm still challenged by screen sharing, obviously. Are we looking at Rapid Identity configuration screen?
Yes, sir. Red Rock Elementary School.
All right. So I am not a little girl in school. It's been many years for me. I am, however, an IT administrator, so I'm in an administrative role right now. And I had debated whether I wanted to jump right in and show you the student experience because that's the wow, right? But I thought maybe I could give a little bit of context to how we do that. As Carter, as you said, it's Rapid Identity. There's no difference other than how the user interacts with the system, the experience they have, what they see. And so how do we make that happen? Some configuration screens, two simple little areas that are new in the product. Again, I'm an administrator, and I'm going to start with a theme. A theme basically is what that little girl with the frown is going to see after they log in to the system. It's basically going to be some sort of pretty picture of a logo. It's going to be a name, a title of the experience they're having, a little favicon so that they can tell when they have a lot of browser tabs open, which is the one that they're aiming for. That's really it. A theme is basically nothing more than, define the landing page for the user. Browser title, the title of the page that the user sees, the logo, and a favicon. Now, themes are leveraged by personas, and this is where the little girl comes in. So little girl would be in a persona, and a theme can be used by many different personas. Here, I'm showing a persona for Red Rock Elementary School. I was looking at the Red Rock Elementary School theme. I'm looking now at a persona. So users that are in a role, and I could have different roles, and roles, are users in roles based upon attributes, but I'm looking at roles that are Red Rock Elementary School's K through 3. So users that, resolve into this role will have this persona, which then will have that theme. And so this persona basically says these users, they won't have the ability to do change anything that they see in the portal. They'll see their applications, they'll launch their applications, and I'll jump into that. What we've learned from many districts is the younger grades, like K through 3, they don't want Bobby or Susie messing things up because it gets very confusing, and then teachers spend more time with their students trying to understand where they are in the portal so they can launch their applications. So here, we're going to turn off the ability for the students in this persona to make any modifications, but we are going to show them, the applications that they need to use. Now, one of the really great things about Rapid Identity is while I have a list of applications that users that meet this persona could see, they will only see and be able to launch these applications if their role or attribute has been configured in the application itself. So we have granular application level security. So if I'm a user that does not resolve to the only special users can see this app, I won't see that app. But if I am a special user, because I'm a special type of guy, I'll see that app, and I'll show you what that means. So basically, we have a theme. The theme is what we're going to see on the screen, and then we have personas, and personas are the people that are going to see it and what they can do when they see it, if that makes sense. So you want to take a look at it?
Absolutely.
Let's jump over. All right, so here's that nice little login screen that you showed us before. I'm going to log in as Pebble. I like Pebble. So Pebble Flintstone, she is going to be in Red Rock Elementary, and she happens to be in K through 3. And so this is Pebble's experience. You can see here the logo that I showed you. I'm in the Red Rock Elementary theme. Here's the Red Rock logo. Got a little Red Rock favicon up here so Pebble can find it when she has a lot of browser tabs open. Go Warriors. I can see Pebble's here. I can reset if I'm Pebble. I can change my password. That's about it. Keeping it very, very simple, right? So K through 3 students, they don't want a lot of clutter. Certainly teachers don't want them to have to navigate through a lot of different things. It's basically, go and launch ABC Mouse. That's what teachers want Pebble to be able to do. Very easily go and launch ABC Mouse. We can take a look at all the applications that Pebble has. Notice it's just a list of them. It's the same list we saw before, but you notice that special application, Pebble's not special. Well, I think she's special, but apparently she's not special enough to have access to that special application. So even though we saw that in the persona, Pebble doesn't see it because she's not that special. She can't do anything. She can't rearrange anything. She can't bookmark anything. So basically, this is what Pebble gets. She launches her application and she goes on, with her business. So she's great. She's in, she's out, she's on with her life. Now let's take a look at a different type of user. So I'm going to log Pebble out. We're going to log in as Fred. So let's log Fred in. Now Fred's a special type of guy. Fred's a parent, happens to be the dad of Pebble. And so Fred's going to get in and Fred's going to see the district website, the parent portal. So again, as you said, Carter, it's not so much, that it's a student-based experience. We know that students predominantly, they get in, they launch applications, they change their password, and they get out. So it's really about launching applications. Obviously, the students are the biggest use case for us, but parents also get in, launch applications, and get out as well. So Fred, as a parent, Fred's got a little bit different, applications. Now, Fred's in a different theme. He's in the Bedrock ISD theme, and the persona that he's in has given him these applications here. Fred also has some other applications though. And now notice Fred can interact here. So maybe Fred doesn't need transportation because he uses a little feet and he gets Pebble to school himself. But maybe he's thinking of the future. So maybe he wants to pull up some FAFSA and start working on those papers early, because as a parent, I can tell you, it's not easy. Maybe
Pebble's been in
Pinterest
third
too.
grade for a long time too, Dave.
See, there you go, Carter. You completely understand. So now you can see Fred has some different applications on his screen. Now, as I mentioned, Fred is a little special too, because not only is Fred a parent, Fred could also be an instructor. And so while Fred's experience was in the Bedrock ISD parent portal, maybe Fred also, maybe he teaches at Boulder High School. And so he has a persona. His attributes or roles relate to the Boulder High School persona. And so he's going to switch over to Boulder High School. You can see now we're in a different theme. We have the Boulder High School citing mammoths. And here's the applications Fred has in this experience. So we're tailoring what the user sees, what the user can do based upon the persona the user is in at that period of time. So now he's no longer just a parent. He's also potentially an instructor. We can see his applications are here. He's got a lot more applications available to him. Maybe he wants to be able to see Google Mail and Google Calendar. So you can just turn those on. We'll see Google Mail and Google Calendar now show up for him. Now there's another thing, maybe Fred in this role, maybe Fred needs to reset Pebble password for her. And so Fred could, as you mentioned, notice my URL up here. It's a very long thing, but it ends, idautoengineering.net P portal. Fred launches this tile. He's still in idautoengineering.net, but now he's in the classic rapid identity experience. He's been landed into the people area so that he could, go into Pebble and he could affect Pebble's password, print out her QR code, do the things that he would need to do as an instructor for Pebble. One of the other things that he can do, though, is he can proxy as. And so proxy as is basically a way for an authorized user to see the experience of another user. And so let's take a look at Bam Bam. So Bam Bam might be in Fred's class. And so Fred's going to proxy as, impersonate, if you will, Bam Bam. So we can see what's Bam Bam's experience going to be. And so now you can see Bam Bam is part of the Bee Cave Middle School. And so Bam Bam's experience when Bam Bam logs on, this is what Bam Bam sees as part of the Bee Cave Middle School. Go Bee Caves. And you can see Bam Bam's application directory is here. Can't do anything, right? I'm viewing what Bam Bam can see. I can't make any modifications to Bam Bam stuff, but it gives me the ability to see what Bam Bam sees. So if I'm in instruction and for whatever reason, Bam Bam's not able to find iStation, I can, quickly proxy as. If I'm, displaying on the overhead, that's great. Bam Bam can see it. Otherwise, I would say, Bam Bam, it's, the second one from the right at the top of the list. And so the ability to proxy as to see what this user is seeing. Does that make sense?
It does. I love the example that you give with Fred because it really drives home the importance of identity management and holistic identity management as opposed to account management. Because specifically in K-12 from an education perspective, there's a lot of emphasis and focus that is given to your teachers and your students and making sure that they have what they need. Parents in the last year specifically have really elevated in priority and been brought into and injected into the process to where how do we get them their stuff quickly? How do they get access to it? How are they onboarded? And the fact that Fred is both a teacher, an employee, and a parent, he needs all of that access. And so if you're only focused on the teacher component of it, then you're either missing out on a large part of who Fred is and what he needs, or he's having to have multiple accounts for each, which is a really poor user experience.
Absolutely, especially when we're talking higher grades as well, right? So there's a term we use internally, we call it affiliation. So an individual in a higher learning institution could be both a professor, a teacher, and a student. They could also be a parent and guardian in K-12 in Fred's example. So understanding that individuals are not necessarily, that one-size-fits-all trench coat that little girl was wearing. We're not all one-size-fits-all. We have different personas depending upon what we're doing at that time. So yeah, thanks for that. All right, so this is the new experience. We'll be enhancing this over time. Right now, we're really focused on launching applications. I could see a time when, someone like Fred as an example, when Fred's in Fred's experience as an instructor, Fred might have more information on the screen, maybe more information about his class. Administrators, I could see a time when administrators are using that view as well. And so administrators, they don't need that nice, comfy experience. They probably need a more compact experience, and they want more density. They want more stuff on the screen because they're administrators, and that's just the way us technical folks work. So stay tuned. There's a lot more that we're going to be doing here. I'm going to switch gears now, though. That's the experience. I'm going to switch gears, and let me talk a little bit about this new insights capability. And so again, you know what? I'm going to forget how we got here, right? I'm going to come back and I will show you this is no smoke and mirrors. There's no somebody behind, the curtain making all this work. But let's actually just jump right in and talk about the new insights capability. So here I am, while I'm still in my administrative persona, I'm no special user when I'm looking at insights. So we have really one type of role. A user is in the insights viewer role, and they have the ability to see the data about my district. So I'm out of my administrator role. I'm just a regular type of Joe that's been given the ability to see information, insights about my district. And we lay insights out. We lay these things out based upon topics. And so we have topics about who are all the users in the system, who's active, who's inactive, who's in what school, how many schools do we have, what's the breakdown between, staff and students and those sorts of things. Then another topic would be, okay, that's all the users in the system. What are they doing? They're logging in. How often do they log in? When don't they log in? As you mentioned before, Carter, when they attempt to log in, how painful is it? Do they get right in, or is a couple swings of the bat before they can get logged in? That sort of thing. Then we take a look, they're logged in, we look at their application activity. What applications are they using? What applications are not getting used, as you mentioned, right? So districts spend a lot of money on those applications. If they expect to have a certain number of users using them, displays it, we'll take a look here. We'll show them whether they're getting their money's worth for that as well. Then there's some inactivity. Who's in the system who's not doing anything? Maybe that's okay. Maybe it's not. You talked about the Verizon data breach report, right? Account takeovers. It's account takeover times happen when accounts are right? Active accounts really do. We'll take a look at those in inactivity and then everything else that users do in the system. So I'm going to walk you through a guided tour. We're going to start with users in the system. You can see in my district, I have 34 schools. The average student per school is about 532. So I'm going to drill into that a little bit. Let's get a little more detail. You'll see a common theme as I navigate through the dashboards. Dashboards are all filter. I can filter by school type. So if I want to narrow this down in my district, I have 3 different types of schools. I have regular schools, exceptional, or alternative education. So if I just want to see one set of those schools, I can just filter here, and that will change my display based upon that filter. If I want to look at an actual school, I can just zip right in. Maybe I want to take a look at Beam Elementary. Let's take a look at Beam Elementary. And if you take a look over here, you'll see Beam Elementary is a regular school. We have 101 staff. We have 427. So 4 to 1, kind of ratio. If we want to take a look at that. A little display over here about my active, users, inactive users in the system, those sorts of things. So you get a feel for how a dashboard works. I'm just going to reset my filters back. Another aspect that seems, to be pretty popular is the ability to drill into data. And so I know I have 83 staff in exceptional children, and I have 80 students here. I can take a look, well, what are all the school names in exceptional children? I only have 1 school in exceptional children. And look at this, the ratio between staff and students is really very close here. And if I want to know who they are, I can just simply right mouse click and, well, let's break them down first by grade level. Let's take a look at their grades. NA would mean we didn't resolve to a grade, so those are probably staff accounts. Looks like 10 grade is pretty high here. If I zoom in a little bit, see how, well, 9th grade is the winner. So 9th grade is my largest grade here in the school. And then ultimately, if I want to take a look at who's who in 9th grade, here's the list of the users in 9th grade. So I can drill into all of this data. It will be the same behavior regardless of what I'm looking at. Here, I'm looking at my top 25 schools in the district, right? So I can see that Mueller Middle School is my largest school. Same sort of thing, right? I can break Mueller down by grades. I can see, what are my top grades? 9th grade is actually the largest, but this is a pretty good mix, So this would be my staff over here. But 9, 10, 11, 12 and 11, so 12 is actually higher than 11. So it's a pretty good distribution. You probably see this when you're walking around the halls in Mueller Middle School. You can probably see when those doors open, it looks like it's a pretty big flood because all the classes are about the same size. So that's pretty much information about who's who in the district. We can break it down by staff and students. Another display is, well, how many are we adding? So we're looking here. This school has been with us, or this district's been with us for a while, so we have 3 years worth of data, and we can take a look at year over year, how many students or staff have we been adding. And I can see here in May, what are we, a little bit different. So notice in 2019 we grew, added 366 in 19, added 215 in 18, but in May of 2020 we only added 81. So what's going on? Why, such a difference? You can see we're pretty similar. So let's take a look at May real quick. Let's look to see, maybe we want to take a look at user types. So let's break it down, see if anything pops out here. Yeah, pretty consistent, right? So maybe if it's not user type, let's take a look at schools. Maybe there's something going on. Some schools, we'll look at this. We have Highsmith Middle School. In 2020, 0 folks were added in 2020 in Highsmith. We added 12 folks in 19, and then 4 folks in 18. So Highsmith, is on a decline. Some of them, it looks like it's a normal curve. So if I'm doing any sort of resource planning, trying to understand what my historical, growth rate look like, I can easily zoom in here, and so I understand where I might want to be thinking about adding or taking away resource. So it's pretty much, it's all about the users in the system. So now that we know who our users are, let's take a look at what they're doing. And it starts with logins. Who's logging in, who's not logging in, how well are they doing every time they attempt to log in. So here's my login activity down here. You can see my successful logins. You can see my unsuccessful logins. That's not bad. It's pretty good ratio. Looks like most of my users are able to get in successfully. You can see when we're looking at days, you can see my weekends in here. So one of the first things I might do is let's filter out the weekends. That makes it too lumpy. So I just want to turn off weekends. Whenever I have a filter turned on, it gives me an indication. If it's red, it means it's being excluded. If it's black, it means it's being included. So I've just excluded weekends, and now I've got a little bit better display. A lot of activity happened here on 6/3. So I might want to take a look at what went on 6/3. Let's break that down into hours. And so my display here is in Central Standard Time. Looks like 5 o'clock. We started, and we peaked around 7 a.m. Activity started. There's a lot of activity. Again, I can break that down. If I want to know, from a school perspective, let's take a look at those schools that logged in at that period of time. You can see, we've got some schools, not a lot of activity. Other schools, a lot more activity. So right here, I would say these are the ones that I probably want to drill in a little bit more. If I jump up here between my, breakdown of, and we're calling them login attempts, right? Because sometimes we're not successful right away, and I want to drill in and get a little more data. I'm going to jump to student. I clicked on the big blue student bubble. And so now I'm going to drill into some student data, and I'm going to take a look here at last successful logins. So the students that were successful yesterday, that's great. We had 94,000 successes. We had 112,000. So not too shabby, right? Pretty much we're successful logging in when we're attempting, and here's my user population of users that attempted to log in yesterday. But folks here that are in this category this week, they didn't log in yesterday. They logged in this week, but not yesterday. If they're in the category of last week, well, they haven't even shown up, this week at all. So we know they're engaged. They, logged in last week, but not this week, and so on and so forth. You can kind of get the feeling here. So you can kind of see how your user population is, using the system. And of course, everybody wants to know, well, who didn't log in yesterday? So a little display here, just right mouse click, and let's jump right down to the data. Who are these folks? At every given point, right, the end result is a table of data. Just give me the data, let me take a look at it myself. I can use my filtering if I want to. I can drill if I want to, but every one of these displays, I can download the data. So depending upon the display determines whether I can download the data, as a picture, but almost all the time I can download the data in CSV format or in Excel format. So if I just want the data and I want to mess with the data myself, I can always do that. Let me pause and see, Carter, any questions? This making sense? Does it sound pretty good?
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. There's a lot of information that we can glean from the insights that are available here.
Absolutely. Look at this. So this is interesting. 11th grade is way more successful. 12th grade is pretty close to 11th grade. Where am I struggling? My students maybe that are in 7th grade. My 7th graders seem to struggle more than my 9th graders do, or my 8th graders. My younger grades seem to be struggling a lot. So I probably want to drill into those, use same techniques that I've already shown, but it gives you an appreciation, again, for not just who's logging on or who didn't log in, but how are they doing when they log in, that sort of thing.
And Dave, I specifically like that one because in our K-12 customers, a lot of the issues that we hear is for younger students, it's very hard for them to just get in and to get access. And so this puts some quantification around, is it hard? Before we make a decision on what their login process needs to be, the login methodology and all of that, what is their actual rate? What is their success rate?
Yep, absolutely. I appreciate that. And when you think about it, one of the things that we'll be extending, so the data is really, it's focused around the data that we have available to us, but we're only scratching the surface. One of the other things that we can expose here is which methods are they using? We have multi-factor authentication. So, the folks that use QR codes, I would hope that they're into the system all the time. Pictographs should be pretty good too. Ping Me, the mobile phone, that should be pretty reliable. Passwords are probably the most challenging, but if we start exposing that sort of data, then admins at least can understand which methods are working better. School administrators can understand, well, we want to be using our younger grades, these methods, because our younger grades can get in better. So we'll be adding, of course, more insight as we get a little more mature. Each of the topics, as I mentioned, we start with a high-level overview, and then we go into some sort of frequency. And so frequency is just more of the period over period display. Here I can see yesterday's logins, this week's logins, last week's logins, my top login days. So in my district, Thursday and then Friday are my days of busiest activity from users using the system. And I'm looking at students, so these would be student users, and my grades. 10th grade is the largest, 9, 8, 7. And then down to 11 is the smallest. So I get a sense for which grades are accessing the system as well. And again, if I want to go into detail, I can just jump down into detail as well. But I'm going to zip into applications. So now they're logged in to the system. What are they doing? They're launching applications. That's pretty much what our students and teachers certainly do. And so how many of these applications are we launching? Here I'm looking at all of the days that are in the data set. If I wanted to filter on that, I can see here's all the days. I could filter by calendar view if I wanted to take a look at that, or I could take a look at a time frame. Let's zip that down to the last 90 days, maybe give us a little better view. Days of the week, again, I can filter out the weekends. I can filter by school name, grade level. One interesting thing when we're looking at applications, because applications can be somewhat a long list, rather than just giving a long list of things to filter, we actually give the ability to filter by text. So applications beginning with, containing, ends with, does not end with, that sort of thing. So I can zoom right in, to get a sense of my applications. Similar to what we were looking at before with logins, I can drill into my students as an example. Let's see what they're doing when they're launching applications. So come right into my student detail, and I'm going to see my top used applications. Here, my top 15 and my bottom 15, you know, my least used applications. So I'm looking at, over the last 90 days, all of the schools in my district, all of the grades. Discovery education, only one launch from a user. Let's see who the lucky user was, just out of curiosity. Take a look who that user was. Kaylin Hans. So God bless Kaylin, because if I've got 100 seats of Discovery Education, I'm probably not getting my money's worth. So Kaylin should probably log in a lot more, or I should reduce the number of seats, or let's take a look at the schools. Actually, let's see if we can zip up to the schools of 7th grade. Let me clean that out. Let's look at the schools that are using Discovery Ed. Well, it's going to be just that one user, so I think I'd click around a little bit more to find the schools that are not using Discovery Ed and probably put some pressure on them. What are my largest applications? You know, my most used applications? Well, Canvas, PowerSchool, SchoolNet. Yeah, that's pretty much what I figured, you know, so it's going to be these ones in the bottom that I'm going to spend a lot of time, you know, drill in and then take corrective action, whatever corrective action means for the district. Same display as we saw before. You know, I can break this down, you know, over, you know, every hour, 30-minute increments, break it down by application. So on this day, if we take a look at the applications that were being logged on, what are we looking at? 6.2. Well, PowerSchool here and Canvas. Kind of goes back to the other display. Not a lot of interesting to see there, because pretty much from a student perspective, I have those two applications that are my big one. But you can see we did have some other applications, like HMH was used, EasyBridge. Here's Discovery Ed got launched by that one user, Kaylin. So thanks for that. Frequency display here, very similar. I can look at periods, you know, over periods, student launches, that sort of thing. Just gives me an appreciation for the activity that my students are doing, which grades are using and using applications, which grades are not, and see if any of that, you know, looks odd. You know, if I'm expecting my high school students to be in there launching applications and I see that, you know, my second graders are doing more, then I might want to drill into that as well. The next display that's really interesting, or the next topic, is inactivity. So inactivity are those users that are defined in the system that don't do anything in the system. Now, maybe this is okay for the district, maybe not. Again, you talked about, you know, account takeovers. This is an attack vector right here. We have active user accounts that could log in, but for some reason, they're not logging in. So we probably want to check these out. You can see a lot. This district has been around for a long time, so we have data going back to 2013, but here, look at 2020. So we added 984 students in 2020 that have had no activity in the system. And again, same thing, I can right mouse see they are and that sort of thing, but you might want to check that to make sure what you expected. In fact, let's take a look at the grades. Since they're students, let's see if there's anything that might look a little wonky with regards to grades. So we have some 5th graders, few numbers, 4th graders, some 3rd graders. Most of them are in grade 0, so maybe this is okay. Maybe we really don't expect these users to be logging in. Maybe we just needed to account for their identity. But again, we probably want to check into that just to make sure, because inactivity, again, it's just yet another attack vector. And then finally, there's everything else. And so we've talked about users coming into the system, logging on, launching applications. Let's take a look at what else is going on. One of the biggest things that we would expect users doing is resetting their passwords. We like that because then teachers aren't doing it for them. And lo and behold, self-service password updates. The biggest slice of the pie, password resets, or that's somebody had to reset the password for the user. Maybe a teacher, maybe an administrator. Very small percent though, so self-service password updates are really good. Here we can see how successful they are. So password resets, we had almost 5,000 password resets. That's somebody doing it, or programmatically 3 unsuccessful. When they do it themselves, still not too shabby. Almost 2,000 self-service password resets over the last 90 days, and only about 90 or so were unsuccessful. So again, I could drill into that, try to get a better feeling for, you know, which grade it might be. if the younger grades or the higher grades. In fact, let's take a look at unsuccessfuls real quick and see if there's anything we can see grade level wise. Well, NA would be my staff. Staff is not doing so good. 8th grade, looks like their bar is pretty big. So again, I can drill in. If there's some sort of anomaly in the data, I can look and understand what's going on and then affect a resolution to it if necessary. So let me pause there, Carter, and see. Yeah, I just threw a lot at you. Any questions? How's this look?
Yeah, this view in particular, it resonates with me because as a former IT person, all of those self-password resets, that's something my team doesn't have to do. That's something that is not a help desk ticket. That is the end user being empowered to do it for themselves. That's time back for me and my team to go do more higher value type tasks. So I love seeing that.
Absolutely. So that's what we have available today. Lots more coming down the pike. We're not even scratching the surface. This is a big data database under the covers. So for any of the technical folks like yourself on the call, I think it's MongoDB under the covers. So big data. And that affords us the ability to do sophisticated analytics with some machine learning behind the scenes. I didn't show a display, but we have some displays where you hover over it, a little light bulb will pop up. Any user will see the little light bulb. You click on the little light bulb and the little light bulb will give you all sorts of information about the data that the system sees using graphics like pie charts or bar charts or line charts, whatever the system felt was appropriate to represent that data. And try to highlight areas where there might be some sort of anomalous, it's hard for me to say, activity. And so I didn't do that. Nobody programmed that. It's just the system found that. That's the little scratch of analytics that we're starting to exploit here. There's a wealth of analytic capability in the system. Soon, what we'll be adding is the ability for a user not just to schedule these reports every district. They're like, oh, I just want to schedule a report. I just want it to show up in my email, right? That's cool. So we'll be adding that in the very, very near future. But one of the cool things that we can do with the system and its analytics is maybe you don't want to see that every day. Maybe you only want to see that when, well, old school, a threshold has been exceeded. So as a user, I could be looking at some data in the system and maybe I tell the system I want to see it when this metric that I'm looking at exceeds, by 10% or something like that, or is lower, right? So it's higher or lower. That's old, way of doing it by a threshold, but the system's more than happy to do that for us. What the system would really like you to do as a user is only send me a report when the data is an anomaly. And so the system will understand over time what a baseline looks like, what is normal operating range for this metric, and then send me as a user, indication that this metric is out of range. Now that's more interesting. But again, we're just scratching the surface right now.
So Dave, as you're talking about more data coming into the fold, more data being available, correlations, causal links, things like that being able to be identified, as your team is developing these views and these insight dashboards, what does a customer need to do to be able to get access to those whenever they're ready to go?
Yeah, so cloud customers get everything I've demonstrated. They get this, right? Capability, which is pretty sophisticated. We'll be enhancing the visualizations as I talked about, but one of the things that we're looking for is we're looking for more data sources, right? And so as we start to get access to additional data sources, maybe we, harvest the data that's being sent through the raw string feed that we're enabling through that transform process. Maybe it's just hooking up to additional data sources, maybe direct to CIS or SIS or those sorts of things. As we get more data sources into the mix, then we can enrich this data to actually show more things, real outcomes as a result of users using the system and launching applications. That's certainly where we're going, Carter.
Yeah, the one pie in the sky that I'm really excited about is pulling back some of that information from those applications that you showed there, as far as the ones that are the most used, because there's a treasure trove of data that is siloed within those applications.
Yep.
Based on open standards, that ability to turn into a bidirectional sync, pull that data back and put it here in a single visual representation for you. Yep. There's a lot of power that can be unlocked with that.
Absolutely. And then we unlock the analytics on it so that we do some level of cohort analysis so we can compare apples to apples and we can give actionable insights into results, outcomes of that data based upon a data set, of cohorts. So yeah, absolutely. Very exciting.
Definitely. Well, Dave, thank you so much for the demo of the new identity-driven user experiences as well as the insights that we have available. If we flip back over to the presentation, there is some really important content that we need to get to, which is questions. Rachel, for all the people who have joined in, before we do that real quick, I love this picture because I think it really represents Dave, you and I, where this was you as a student in the front row raising your hand, happy, ready to go. And this was me just like scowling in the back, underachieving. So it's a fun dynamic there. Rachel, what if any questions do we have from the audience?
Hey, yeah, we have a few questions that have come in. So the first one, is there an additional cost for insights or the student experience?
Great question. They are not standalone modules that have any additional cost. So as Dave alluded to, you purchase Rapid Identity Cloud. This is what comes with it. And that's part of the benefit of going, again, with an identity as a service with a cloud IAM type model is as we're developing these types of features and functionalities, we can just turn them on for you. And it's a benefit that you get for adding additional value over the lifetime of yourself as a customer. So our thank you to them.
Awesome. Second question, how often will new feature updates be released?
Oh, I can take that one, Carter. So because we're in the cloud, sorry to be repetitive, cloud, but as a product guy, it gives us the ability to have a regular cadence. And so we run on a 4-week cadence. So there's always something coming out of the development factory on a 4-week cadence. And so we hide some of these capabilities behind a switch that we can turn on because some districts don't want to expose new capabilities to their district all at one time. They might want to prepare for some of them. And so we can turn things on when a district is ready to have that capability, but it comes out of the factory on a 4-week. Every 4 weeks, there's something coming out, something new.
Awesome. And then our last question, we use Clever for SSO. Can we still use Rapid Identity Cloud?
So I'll hop in and take this one, Dave. So yes, we get this question from a lot of customers all the time, whether it's Clever, whether it is another vendor. If you already have an SSO portal in place, let's say you already have a rostering solution in place, but you understand the need for the identity and access management component and the automation that brings for you. Yes, we absolutely coexist with any and all of them. One of the beauties of Rapid Identity is the flexibility that it allows, which is we can be a one-stop shop and that everything you need platform, or we can be a point solution that fills just that need. We have no issue coexisting with anybody else in your ecosystem. The goal is for us all to just augment each other and provide the best experience for your users and the most robust security and functionality for your IT teams.
Great, awesome. Well, that wraps up our Q&A session. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us. We hope you have a great day.